Chapter 6: The Beginnings of Indian Civilization. The most ancient civilization of India, known variously as the Harappan, Indus or Indus-Saraswati civilization, was indeed remarkable in many ways. It showed how a well-balanced community lives, in which the difference between the rich and the poor are not glaring. In essence, the Harappan societal scenario was not that of exploitation, but of mutual accommodation by B. Lal. The big questions: what is a civilization? Second, what was the earliest civilization of the Indian subcontinent? Third, what were its major achievements? Figure 6.1: The North Gate entrance to Dholavira's castle area. Here we can see what is a civilization. At the end of chapter 4, we saw the first human groups settling down, practicing agriculture, developing some technologies such as construction, metallurgy, transport, and moving towards civilization. Metallurgy. Metallurgy includes the techniques of extracting metals from nature, purifying or combining them, as well as the scientific study of metals and their properties. What, then, is civilization? In general, the term is used for an advanced stage of human societies. To be precise, we will consider here that a civilization should have at least the following characteristics: some form of government and administration to manage a more complex society and its many activities. Urbanism, town planning, the growth of cities and their management, which generally includes water management and a drainage system. A variety of crafts, including the management of raw materials such as stone or metal, and the production of finished goods such as ornaments and tools. Trade, both internal within a city or a region and external with distant region or other parts of the world to exchange all sorts of goods. Some form of writing, needed to keep records and to communicate cultural ideas about life and the world, expressed through art, architecture, literature, oral tradition, or social customs. A productive agriculture, enough to feed not just the village but also the cities. Think about it. Which of the above characteristics do you think is the most fundamental, that is, a characteristic essential to the development of all others? Let's explore. For each characteristic in the list above, can you make a list of professions or occupation that might exist in such a society? It is easy enough to see that all these characteristics are present in most societies in the world today. But when did civilization begin? In the sense we have now defined. Civilization began at different times in different parts of the world. In the region known as Mesopotamia, modern Iraq and Syria, that happened about 6,000 years ago, and the civilization in ancient Egypt followed a few centuries later. You will learn more about these and a few more civilizations in a later grade. In many ways, humanity would not have reached its present stage without the enormous contribution and advance of those ancient civilizations. For now, however, we will only look at the Indian subcontinent, and its northwest region is where our story begins. 400 before Common Era, beginning of Mesopotamian civilization. 300 before Common Era, beginning of Egyptian civilization. 2000 before Common Era, Indus Saraswati civilization. Figure 6.2. Timeline showing the period of Indus-Saraswati civilization from about 2600 to 1900 before Common Era. From village to city. The vast plains of the Punjab, today divided between India and Pakistan, and Sindh, now in Pakistan, are watered by the Indus River and its tributaries. These made those plains fertile land and therefore favorable to agriculture. A little further east, a few millennia ago, another river, the Saraswati, used to flow from the foothills of the Himalayas through Haryana, Punjab, parts of Rajasthan and Gujarat. See figure 6.3. In this whole region from about 350 before Common Era, villages grew into towns and with increasing trade, other exchanges. Those towns further grew into cities. This transition happened around 2600 before Common Era. Archaeologists gave this civilization several names: Indus, Harappan, Indus-Saraswati or Sindhu-Saraswati civilization. We will use all these terms. Its inhabitants are called Harappans. It is one of the oldest civilizations in the world. Tributary: a river that flow into a large river or lake. For instance, the Yamuna is a tributary of the Ganga. Don't miss out. Why are the inhabitants of these civilizations called Harappas today? This is simply because the city of Harappa, today in Pakistan's Punjab, was the first of this civilization to be excavated way back in 1920-21, over a century ago. This development is also called the first urbanization of India. Here we can see a map in which we can see Hindu Kush, Suleiman Range, Himalayan Range, River Indus and its tributaries, Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Satluj, Beas, and areas of Indus Valley civilization like Musa Khel, Manda, Rupnagar, Banwali, Kalibangan, Hadappa, Dabarkot, Lakhanjo-Daro, Mohenjo-Daro, Balakot, Chanhudro, Ganweriwala, Birana, Farmana, Rakhigarhi, Khirsara, Dholavira, Nagwada, Bagasra, Nageshwar, Lothal. Figure 6.3. Map of the main settlements of Indus-Saraswati civilization. Notice the natural boundaries formed by the mountain ranges in brown color. Let's explore. Some of the important cities of this civilization are marked on the map figure 6.3. As a class activity, can you try to match these cities when the modern states or regions in the table on the next page? Harappan cities, modern state or region. Dholavira, Punjab. Options we have to match: Hadappa, Gujarat; Kalibangan, Sindh; Mohenjo-daro, Haryana; Rakhigarhi, Rajasthan. The Saraswati River. The map, figure 6.3 on page 89, shows the Indus or Sindhu and its 5 main tributaries. Important cities grew along those rivers such as Mohenjo-daro and Hadappa. But there are also many sites along the Saraswati River, which today goes by the name of Ghaggar in India and Hakra in Pakistan, hence the name Ghaggar-Hakra River. This river is now seasonal because it flows only during the rainy season. The Saraswati River is first mentioned in the Rig Veda, an ancient collection of prayers which we will read about in chapter 7. In this text, Saraswati is worshipped both as a goddess and as a river flowing from the mountain to sea. Later texts describe the river as drying up and eventually disappearing. Town planning. Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, now in Pakistan, were the first two cities of this civilization to be discovered. Their identification goes back to 1924, a century ago. Several sites followed in the Indus Plains, which is why the civilization was initially called Indus Valley Civilization. Later on, other major cities such as Dholavira in Gujarat, Rakhigadi in Haryana, Ganweriwala in the Cholistan desert of Pakistan, and hundreds of similar sites such as Lothal in Gujarat were discovered, some of them excavated. Such discoveries continues even today. It is interesting to note that the Saraswati Basin include not only two major cities, Rakhigadi and Ganweriwala, but also several smaller ones. Farm- Parmana in Haryana, Kalibangan in Rajasthan, and a few towns, Birana and Banwali, both in Haryana. Indeed, the map, figure 6.3 on page 89, makes clear the high density of sites in this region. Think about it. You may have came across the term Indus Valley Civilization and noticed that we have not used it. A look at the map, figure 6.3 on page 89, explains why the term valley is obsolete, as we know now that the civilization extended much beyond the Indus region. The large and Harappan cities were built according to precise plans. They had wide streets, figure 6.4 and figure 6.5 on page 92, which were often oriented to cardinal directions. Most cities seems to have been surrounded by fortifications and had two distinct parts: the upper town, where the local elite probably lived, and the lower town, where common people lived. Fortification: a massive wall surrounding a settlement or a city, generally for protective purpose. Elite: here the word refers to the higher layer of society such as rulers, officials, administrators, and often priests. Some large buildings seems to have been used for collective purposes. For instance, warehouses where goods to be transported were stored. Individual houses of various sizes lined and streets in and smaller lanes. Interestingly, the quality of construction were the same of small and big houses. All those buildings were generally made of bricks. The purpose of some of the structure remains a matter of debate. This is the case of famous Great Bath in Mohenjo-daro. Figure 6.6 and on page 93, a small but elaborated tank which measured about 12 into 7 meters and had waterproofing material such as natural bitumen, a form of tar, applied on top of carefully laid out bricks. The tank, figure 6.4, a wide street of Kalibangan, Rajasthan, in the lower town area. Right. Figure 6.5, housing area in Dholavira with perpendicular streets in the middle town. Dholavira had three distinct zones. Note, two as in other cities. Also in these cities, the foundation of most buildings were made with stones. Was surrounded by small rooms, one of which contained a well. There was a drain in one corner of the tank to empty it from time to time and refill it with fresh water. Figure 6.6, Mohenjo-daro's Great Bath. What was the purpose of such a structure? Archaeologists have proposed several possible interpretations. A public bath for people, a bath for royal family only, or a tank used for religious rituals. The first interpretation is now ruled out because it turns out that in these cities most houses has had individual bathrooms. Let's explore. How did it in class about the last two interpretation? Can you think of any others? Remember that in this case we do not have any other source of history. No inscription, no text, no traveler's account, nothing. Water management. The Harappan gave much importance to water management and cleanliness. They often had separate areas for bathing in their homes. These were connected to a larger network of drains, figure 6.7, which generally ran below the streets and took the waste water away. Here we can see the picture. Figure 6.7 Drainage system at Lothal, Gujarat. In Mohenjo-daro, people drew water from hundreds of wells made of bricks, but in other regions it may have been from ponds, nearby streams or human-made reservoirs. In the case of Dholavira, in the run of Kutch in Gujarat, the largest reservoir measured 73 meters in length. Reservoir, a large natural or artificial place where water is stored. Let's explore. As a class activity, measure the length of your classroom, a school corridor, or a playground with the help of any measuring tape. Compare these lengths with the length of a largest reservoir in Dholavira. At Dholavira, at least 6 large reservoirs were built with stones or even cut into the rock. Most of them were connected through underground drains for efficient water harvesting and distribution. Figure 6.8 A large reservoir cut in the rock at Dholavira measuring 33 meters in length. Think about it. Imagine the large number of workers required to build such a network of reservoirs. Who do you think organized their work and gave them precise instructions? How do you think they were paid for their labors? And there was no money at that time in the way we have today. Since the reservoirs needed to be cleaned from time to time, was there some local authority to manage their maintenance? What clues do we get from all these about this city ruler and municipal administration? Use your imagination and discuss with your teacher. Archaeologists also discuss this question and answers are not always final. What did the Harappans eat? The Harappans created many of their settlements along the bank of large or small rivers. This is a logical choice, not just for easy access to water but also for agriculture. Since rivers enrich the soil around them, archaeological findings have shown that the Harappan grew cereals like barley, wheat, some millets, and sometimes rice. In addition to pulses and a variety of vegetables, they were also the first in Eurasia to grow cotton, which they used to weave into cloths. They made farming tools, including the plow, figure 6.9, some of which continue to be used by modern-day farmers. Pulses, a category of crop that include beans, peas, and lentils, dal. Figure 6.9, a small clay model of a plow from Banwali in Haryana. This intense agriculture activity was managed by hundreds of small rural sites or villages. Then as now, the cities could survive only if enough agriculture produce from rural areas reached them on a daily basis. The Harappans also domesticated a number of animals for meat consumption and fished both in rivers and in sea. This is known from the large number of animal and fish bones found during excavation. What did Harappan cooking pot contain? Scientific examination of clay pots have provided some answers, both expected ones, dairy products, and surprising ones such as remains of turmeric, ginger, and banana. Clearly, their diet was quite diverse. Let us explore. Imagine you cook a meal in Harappan house. What dish or dishes would you prepare based on the data given above? Brisk trade. The Harappans were engaged in active trade, not only within their own civilization, other cities nearby or far away, but with other civilization and cultures within outside India. They exported ornaments, timber, some object of daily use, figure 6.1 on page 98. Probably also gold and cotton and possibly some food items. The most favored ornaments were beads of carnelian, figure 6.10 on page 98, a reddish semi-precious stone found mostly in Gujarat. Harappan craftspeople developed special technique to drill them so a string could pass through them and to decorate them in various ways. They also worked conch shells into beautiful shell bangles, which require sophisticated techniques as shell is a hard material. What the Harappan imported in exchange of the exported goods is not so clear. It probably included copper, since this metal was not so common back home. Don't miss out. The Harappan mastered the art of working copper, a soft metal. If tin is added to copper, the resulting metal is bronze, which is harder than copper. The Harappan used bronze to make tools, pots and pans and, as we will see later, some figurines. Figure 6.11 Harappan ivory comb, about 7 centimeters long, found on the coast of Oman. Figure 6.10 Harappan beads of carnelian beads excavated at Susa, present-day Iran. To conduct such a trade, they used land routes and rivers and the sea for more distant destinations. This is the first intensive maritime activity in India. Indeed, quite a few Harappan settlements are located in the coastal regions of Gujarat and Sindh. Lothal, a small settlement in Gujarat, has a surprisingly huge basin measuring 217 meters in length and 36 meters in width. The length is just a little more than that of two football grounds. These basins must have been a dockyard, that is, a structure used to receive and send boats for further transportation of goods. Such elaborated trade requires traders to be able to identify their goods and also each other. This seems to have been the chief purpose of thousands of small seals, which have been excavated from many settlements. These seals, figure 6.12, the huge dockyard at Lothal. These seals were generally made of statite, a soft stone that would be hardened through heating. They measure only a few centimeters and generally depict animal figures with above them a few signs that are part of writing system. But that system and the symbolic meaning of the animal figure are yet to be understood. What is certain is that they somehow relate to trade activities. Figure 6.13.1, 6.13.2 and 6.13.3 from left to right, Harappan seal showing a unicorn, Harappan seal showing a bull, Harappan seal showing a horned tiger. Let's explore. Look at these three Harappan seals with some writing signs What goes through your mind? Would you like to suggest any interpretation? Let your imagination run. The lives of the ancients. Archaeologists have unearthed many objects made and used by Harappans. Object of daily use. Figure 6.14.1 top, 6.14.2 right, a bronze mirror, a terracotta pot, both from Dholavira. Figure 6.14.3 top, 6.14.4 to the right, a few stone weights, a bronze chisel, both from Dholavira. Figure 6.14.5, 6.14.6, a games board engraved on a stone about 25 cm in length from Dholavira, a terracotta vessel about 4 cm in length from Karanpura in Rajasthan. Harappan designed many games and toys to keep both adults and children amused. Cultural and symbolic object. Figure 6.15.1, 6.15.2, 6.15.3. A statue of a figure often called priest king. Although it is not known with this figure was a seal showing a swastika, a seal depicting a three-faced deity seated on a raised platform surrounded by powerful animals. Figure 6.15.4, 6.15.5, 6.15.6. The Dancing Girl, a bronze figurine from Mohenjo-daro. It is 10.8 centimeter high. A terracotta figurine seated in a namaste, a design on a pot which seems to tell the story of the thirsty crow, who finds a clever way to drink water at the bottom of the pot from Lothal. Think about it. Look at the object on page 100 and 101 or any other picture in this chapter. Can you make out what activities or aspect of life were important for the Harappans? Let's explore. Complete the story found on the Lothal pot. How was such a story remembered for more than 4,000 years in your opinion? Consider the dancing girl figurine. What do you make of the attitude the figurine expresses? Observe her bangles covering an entire arm, a practice still visible in part of Gujarat and Rajasthan. Where else in this chapter can you spot bangles worn in this manner? What conclusion should we draw from these? The end or a new beginning. Around 1900 before Common Era, the Sindhu-Saraswati civilization, despite all its achievement, began to fall apart. The cities were abandoned one by one. If any inhabitants remained, they adopted a rural lifestyle in the changed environment. It appears that the earlier government or administration no longer existed. Gradually, the Harappans scattered over hundreds, if not thousands, of small rural settlements. Think about it. The Harappans returned to rural settlements because a rural lifestyle gives easier access to food and water than an urban lifestyle. Then as now, cities depend on villages to provide food and sometimes water. What caused this decline? Archaeologists have proposed many factors long back. It was through that warfare or invasion may have destroyed the cities, but there is no trace of warfare or invasion. Indeed, the Harappans do not seem to have kept any arm or weapons of war. As far as the evidence goes, it seems to have been a relatively peaceful civilization. Two factors are currently agreed upon. First, a climatic change which affected much of the world from 2200 before Common Era onward, causing reduced rainfall and a drier phase. This would have made agriculture more difficult and could have reduced food supply to the cities. Second, the Saraswati River dried up in its central basin. Suddenly, cities there, such as Kalibangan or Banwali, were abandoned. There could have been other factors, but these two remind us of how much we depend on climate and the environment for our well-being. Although the cities disappeared, much of Harappan culture and technology survived and was passed on to the next phase of Indian civilization, which we will explore in a future chapter. Before we move on, the Indus Harappan or Sindhu Saraswati civilization is one of the oldest of the world. Its inhabitants, the Harappans, created planned cities with efficient water management, diverse crafts, and a brisk trade. A productive agriculture brought a variety of crops to the cities. The civilization eventually declined, probably because of climatic and environmental changes. People returned to a